Good morning, my fellow world citizens. This is Jared Tettleman. I'm a longtime activist with Citizens for Global Solutions, and I'm here this morning to discuss the understanding of what causes war and peace. Myself, I am the co-author of a book called One World Democracy, Progressive Vision for Enforceable Global Law. And as every good book answers, nonfiction book answers, it answers a question. And one of the questions that I had in writing that book was, what is the cause of war and what is the cause of peace? So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. First of all, let's look back in history, take a look back in history and see how humans evolved. Throughout human evolution, you can get a glimpse of how humans used to live if you look at tribes such as hunter-gatherers in New Guinea, Africa, places where people are still living primitively, or in the Amazon. And you still see war in there. That the war is actually part of it, but it's a very on a minor scale, meaning that people use very crude weapons, arrows, knives, that kind of thing. And it's not the massive devastation that we see in the modern world. So the history of warfare, if you look at it, human history is the history of warfare. It's been very interconnected. Warfare has been with us a long time. But the good news is, even as our technology has advanced and now we have weapons of mass destruction, and as a matter of fact, we've evolved to the point that the world could be destroyed by nuclear weapons at the push of a button. So we have come a long way from clubs and knives to nuclear weapons, but unfortunately our morality or our legal entities that protect us have not evolved at that same time. So looking back at the history of warfare, we're looking at now we live in a world that we've kind of reached an end point. And when I say an end point, nuclear weapons are kind of an end point, meaning that we have what is called mutually assured destruction, or MAD. This is the philosophy that evolved from the Cold War, meaning that we're not going to launch nuclear weapons. Russia wasn't going to launch nuclear weapons, because if we did, we knew that it was a suicide mission, meaning that we would be destroyed. This is still the case today in the modern world, that we have nuclear weapons. There's, I believe, currently 9 states that have nuclear weapons or capability, and we still have this standoff, meaning that the world is peaceful in the sense we haven't used them since the end of World War II, which is very fortunate, but it's very unfortunate they still exist. So looking back to kind of discover what it is that causes war, what it is that causes peace, we have to look at social evolution and how things have changed politically over the years. We started off as small city-states, small groups of humans, and then we evolved into larger groups. So this evolution, as we got bigger and bigger, created a peace within the group. Humans evolved with a in-group and an out-group mentality. Now, the in-group, that's the group that you belong to. That's the group that you have your allegiance to. That in-group is, in the beginning was small, usually small tribes, 150 people. We still see this in the animal kingdom. But as this increased, as the in-group increased, we began to see fighting other groups. So as you got to the city-state level, the in-group went from being just city-state fighting other city-states, and you always had an out-group. So what happened later was that these groups got bigger. So currently our in-group, if you look at it, would be the size of a country. The country now, like America, is an in-group. So we have an out-group, that would be other countries. Some groups are friendly to us, other groups are not. But war has been obliterated in certain areas. If you look at the world today, you can look at the globe and you can see large areas of the world that used to be at war with each other. That would be Europe. Europe was at war for centuries with each other, and now is at peace because they have the European Union. They have law, they have a parliament, they have a court system. So they have integrated to a degree. They're not one country, but they have integrated enough that they have peace has prevailed in Europe since the end of World War II, and it has done so within the European Union. Now, there's been wars in Europe outside of the European Union, such as in the Balkans and actually in Ukraine. There's still currently some war that's going on. But within the countries with the Union, it's held. So if we look at what causes war and what causes peace, war is kind of in our nature. Peace is actually created by the rule of law, meaning that if you have law, if you have people that can solve their disputes through law, that things go much better, because the very nature of law is the resolution by peaceful means of disputes. This is what courts do. This is what parliaments do. This is why within areas like the United States, we don't have states fighting each other. If there's a dispute over, let's say there's a dispute over river water in the Colorado River, Arizona and California don't go to war over that. They go to court, and that's worked out in a parliament or in a court. And this can be done at a global level, and that's the idea that if we want to abolish war, which is possible, it has been abolished in many parts of the world so far. Within the United States, war doesn't exist. Within Europe, it doesn't exist. Within, let's say, India used to be a lot of small kingdoms. Those kingdoms have come together and now have one state. And that has eliminated war within that. The idea, of course, of World Federation is not to make the world into one state. It's to make the world into a variety of states that work out their disputes in parliaments and courts and still have a lot of diversity. This was kind of the motto of the European Union, was unity in diversity. That meaning you want some unification and you want some rules, but you want diversity within each place. We look at the world, and it's actually much more peaceful than people think. We have evolved, and because of these large states, there is peace in great pieces of the world where war used to exist, such as in the United States and Europe, and China is a very large area. There's peace within these countries, and even the Western world, the United States, North America, South America, the Caribbean. War has actually been eliminated. We had the last civil war was settled in in Colombia recently. And you have the whole Western Hemisphere is actually at peace. Now there's still problems. There's still, narco-terrorism. There's still all kinds of problems. But as far as civil war or even international war, those borders are kind of fixed and has gone away. Let's talk a little bit for a minute about what is the nature of war. Why does one group fight the other group? This is something. It's not strictly ethnocentrism. It's not strictly an in-group, out-group. It actually has to do with something, sometimes it has to do with resources. Early wars were fought over territory, obviously, is a big thing. But the other thing is story. And this is something that's kind of unusual. A lot of people don't understand this. I read a book not too long ago called Sapiens. And Sapiens is a very interesting book. It's written by Yuval Noah Harari, who's a professor at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And he talks about evolution, but what he talks about is that humans have a unique trait that we can hold a story in our head, and we can do this in 100 people. We can do this in thousands of people. We can do this with millions of people, and that this was a unique attribute that caused us to become civilized, caused us to rise, caused us to work in groups. So it's quite an interesting idea, and it really is the big dispute of our world. It always has been, is who makes the story. And it is said in politics, whoever tells the story is the person with the power. And so the story the wars are actually fought over the story. If you think about it, we call it clash of cultures. There's some groups, the story might be about democracy. Some groups, it might be about having a theocracy, such as in Iran. Might be Islamic fundamentalism is one story. Another story is liberalism. These are all stories, and they hold together millions of people or groups of people. And so the idea of war and peace, a lot of a lot of war and peace is fought over what is the story, what is the religion, what is the politics, is it communism, is it capitalism? These are great conflicts that can be resolved. So part of what I'm talking about in terms of finding world peace or finding a more peaceful solution to the world is creating a new story. And that really is what we need to do. We need to create a new story about that we are citizens of the world, that we are a global family, that we are not fighting each other. The idea that groups of humans will hunt down other groups of humans just because they have a different look, a different story, they have something you want. This is barbarism, and so we're trying to evolve past that with a new story. Which the new story is we're all citizens of the world. We are all basically one human family, and the idea of war is self-destructive at this point. We live in this world where war has evolved. The technology has way surpassed our ability to control it, and we have kind of a nightmare situation that if we don't change the level of protection that we provide to countries and to groups through some other means besides weapons, that we were really in big trouble. So we look at war and peace over time, and it really is a situation where when law is expanded, we create peace. So anytime you have countries coming together and working together and having actual the rule of law, which is the basis of civilization. Law is civilization, meaning that's how it started. That's you have rules, you resolve disputes through nonviolence. This is what the world is trying to do. At this point, we're kind of stuck at the point of the nation state, and we have not evolved past the nation state too well, except I would say Europe, and there are some other areas that do have rules. We have the UN, we have, there are international law. Recently, one of the big steps that I think was very impressive is that the majority of nations in the world have come together to say we want to ban nuclear weapons and have agreed that they will not produce nuclear weapons and have asked for this ban. It has worked in other groups of weapons, such as, there was a big effort to ban landmines. There was a big effort to, we have gotten rid of biological weapons, chemical weapons. These have been banned. So the possibility that through a law that we could ban a class of weapons, such as nuclear weapons, is possible. Unfortunately, the states that are most likely to not go along with that are the ones that have the power and have the nuclear weapons. So it's kind of a catch-22. I'm not sure that's quite going to do it. You have to, in my opinion, when you look at social evolution over time, that we have been evolving and we're evolving through law. And that idea is that we can abolish the need for war. You have to provide there is a reason that we have these large armies and there's large military budgets and nuclear weapons. There's a reason for that, and that is that we're afraid another country is going to attack, invade, dominate us. And so you have to provide the protection that is given by those with another form of protection, and that is actually law. And transfer a small portion of the sovereignty, the idea of sovereignty, into a higher organization. This is what the European Union did. This is what many places over time have done as they've gone from little kingdoms to great nations. The United States, when it was formed originally, was a confederation. And right after we broke away from England, we were a confederation. And there were actually squabbles between the states where they had the militia come out and would fight over different things. And it wasn't until it became a federation, meaning it became more together, more of a central government, that was eliminated. So the same thing can be done at the global level, that war can be eliminated. It's been with us forever, war has, but there's many other things that have been with us forever. Slavery was with us forever. People used to do human sacrifices, cannibalism. There's a whole list of things that humans don't do anymore because we become more civilized. And really our challenge is to bring civilization to the global level. This is really the challenge of our age, is can we bring live in a more civilized world where we don't have to settle our disputes through military force. The other thing, of course, is there's a benefit to eliminating war, and it's way beyond just the destruction of the war. It's the resources. Think of how many resources go into, building bombers, building large ships, maintaining a nuclear fleet, maintaining large armies. The amount of you know, intelligence, money that goes into warfare throughout human history has been tremendous. Today, it's even more so. So the idea is we need to develop the political institutions so that we can resolve our disputes through courts, parliaments, and change things. So that's really the idea. I mean, social evolution, we are in this process, but the challenge of our age really is this challenge. Can we become a civilized world? Can we create a world in which our disputes are settled, by talking, by law, rather than by the force? And it can easily be done. It can be done by transforming the United Nations, holding a UN reform summit. That could be done. It could be the democracies of the world come together to start a global union. It can be done through a lot of different paths, but it has to start with the individual and the raising of consciousness. Meaning you have to have the consciousness to go, wait a minute, we have a problem. The problem is we have some existential crises in the world that need to be addressed. War is probably the number one. In my book, has always been the number one thing. It's the fast way to human destruction. So in order to address that, we have to create the way peace has been created everywhere else in the world. Within the United States, there's peace because there's law. Within the European Union, there's peace because there's law. Within every country in the world where it's civilized, it's because of law. And of course, that law preferably is democratic law. You can go back to ancient times and see that you had what was called Pax Romana, where the Romans conquered the world, but they didn't destroy the countries they would take over. They would make them part of Rome, and they would collect taxes, but they had Roman law. But there was a period of peace because it was under law. Preferably I would prefer democratic law because it's a fair system. There is always a risk in law that it can become corrupt. It can lose the fairness. So that's part of it. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you today, was about the history of war, about how we're evolving, social evolution, and where we're at in time now that we have evolved. But we're at a critical moment. We're at a critical moment where, for the first time in the history of the world, the humans have the ability to destroy the world within a few seconds. And it's a very critical time, but we have to take the next evolutionary jump. And that evolutionary jump is to a system of law at the global level. And it doesn't have to be, a large bureaucracy. It just needs to be strong enough to begin to disarm and begin to feel comfortable that you have enough protection in the world that you don't need all these weapons. We live in a bit of an insane world, but we need a little bit of reason. We need a little bit of cooperation. So that's why I support Citizens for Global Solutions, because this is the goal of Citizens for Global Solutions. It is to become a more civilized world, to bring law to the global level, to bring democratic law and fair law, and to eliminate war, the idea of the abolition of war through replacing it with law. And so this is the quest, and I hope that you join us. I hope that you look at the website for Citizens for Global Solutions and get more involved and learn a little bit more about what the cause of war and peace is. So I thank you for joining me today. I don't know if anybody has